Now, a tale of two religions. Last Thursday, the Pope, the leader of more than 1 billion Roman Catholics and the most influential Christian in the entire world, gave a 10,000-word interview where, while affirming church teaching on life and sexuality and morality, reminded us that we have to emphasize love, peace, compassion, forgiveness, understanding, gentleness, grace. The following day, a group of Muslim fanatics, fired and inspired by the Quran, attacked a shopping mall in Kenya, lined people up and asked them if they were Muslim. They asked them the name of Muhammad's mother and then whether they could recite verses from the Quran. If they couldn't, they were shot dead. They included small children, old people, women. One young couple, the wife heavily pregnant and 2 weeks away from giving birth, they died in each other's arms. He was an architect who had just built an AIDS hospital in Kenya, free of charge, and she was a brilliant and Harvard-trained academic who wanted to help the African people. The slaughter and the carnage went on for days. In another continent, in Pakistan, Anglican Christians, Pakistanis, leaving church, were victims of suicide bombs, where Muslims chanting Allah Akbar, God is great, blew almost 100 people to raw flesh and meat. Christians in Pakistan have been persecuted and murdered for years now. The least they can hope for is a job cleaning toilets, even if they've got a master's degree. You see, the Pakistani government has said in effect that only Christians can do such jobs, and that same government then accuses Israel of being an apartheid state. Frankly, this partnership, this duality of events is not new and will surely be repeated.
It was a beautiful day. We came to church to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. People started coming as early as 6 in the morning. It was going to be a joyous occasion.
But it never turned out that way. A suicide bomber in a vehicle packed with explosives drove up this busy street and stopped in front of the church. Uche Bonaventure and his 17-month-old son had just walked out the church front doors when the bomb exploded.
The explosion threw me back and my son was hurled across the other side. Around me I could see bodies on fire.
Within minutes, husbands became widowers, wives became widows, children became orphans, and parents were childless.
Minorities are persecuted and prosecuted throughout the Islamic world. Minorities are protected and promoted throughout the Christian world. Of course, not all Muslims behave so grotesquely, of course not. But what does Islam say? What does the Quran preach? And does orthodox mainstream Islam allow people to convert, allow women to be equal, allow gay people to live in safety? Does it allow the Quran to be criticized? Does it allow free speech to flourish? Intelligent and honest people want to discuss all of this and to admit the truth. But in the past few days, we have seen more anger, just listen to this, more anger spewed by media and the chattering classes at conservative Catholics for explaining that the Pope is not going soft on life and morality and sexuality than we have seen directed at Islam for producing legions of animalistic murderers eager to slaughter every person they see.
News media has to stop all this ridiculous, over-the-top coverage of the Virgin Bachelor. No, not that one, this one. Now, I gotta tell you, I have just about had it with the press squealing in delight at every mundane thing the new Pope does. Oh, look, he walked across the street.
We had to cut it there because then he starts using the F word, because he's a very brave guy. He's tough, you know, all the idiots in the audience cheering, I'm going to attack the Pope. But he doesn't actually say very much about Islam, and he would never do it in an Islamic country. Him and the rest of them, they refer to religion rather than Islam. They speak of religious extremism instead of Muslim extremism. They run away like frightened little children rather than turn and fight and stand up for disenfranchised, persecuted, besieged minorities, invariably Christian, facing a living hell in the Islamic world. Mock Christians win a Hollywood award. Mock Islamic fanaticism and then be denied by celebrities and rejected by liberals where Muslim killers promise to murder you and your family. Yes, a tale of two religions in a single few days. In Kenya, a little English boy, unaware of the ghastly reality of all that was going on, he looked bravely at one of the Muslim thugs who just shot his mum in the leg, and he said, "You're a very bad man." The idiot with the gun, he gave this little boy a bunch of Mars bars and moved on. If only the actors, the politicians, the authors, the journalists, the deniers, and the rest had an ounce of the courage of that little fella. But they haven't.
I think right now giving our heartfelt condolences and support to the families of not just the Canadians, of people around the world who've been touched by this. We need to remain strong in our opposition and condemnation of terror in all its forms around the world. And we need to be close with our international partners to offer whatever aid, whether it's investigation or whether it's police or even other kinds of support that are needed as it comes up. We right now are responding in shock and horror.
What? I'm sorry. How many cliches, empty, callow, shallow, hollow cliches can you give? Terrorism in all its forms. Yeah, those bloody Lutherans, they're at it again, and the Unitarians, you can't trust them, you know. Speak, man. You're meant to be a national leader. Just have the courage to condemn what it is. Not religious extremism. It's Islamic terror. You know what it is. Speak the truth. Claire Lopez, she speaks the truth. Gatestone Institute, she's an author. She's written about this extensively. Claire, you didn't hear the monologue, but I just spoke about contrasting Christianity with Islam and how the Pope a few days ago spoke of love and peace and bridges and compassion and understanding. The knives were out for him. I mean, as soon as he said this, people were saying, oh, he's just a hypocrite. And yet they refused to speak about Islam and the number of murderers it is producing at this point.
Yeah, Michael, you're absolutely right. I mean, at this point in time, we look with shock and horror around the world in so many places. The church in Pakistan, where dozens and dozens were killed. Nigeria, where hundreds are killed by Boko Haram, an Islamic jihadist organization. And of course, the recent horrific attack at the shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya, by Islamic jihadist attackers who clearly and openly separated out the shoppers into those who were Muslim, telling them to go, get out, and those who were not, who were killed on the spot.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I didn't make that specifically in the monologue. This needs to be stressed that Muslims, now some Muslims died. One of the Canadian victims was a Muslim from British Columbia. But what they were saying, if you are a Muslim, especially if you're our sort of Muslim, but if you are a Muslim, you can go. The rest, who were whatever their religion, I know one of the women who was murdered was Jewish, but mainly Christian or whatever they were, but you're not a Muslim, thus you will die. This is the most ultimate deadly form of discrimination. We will kill you because of what you are and what you're not.
Yeah, Michael, we have to face what is going on here. This is straight out of the Quran and Islamic doctrine on jihad, unfortunately. It doesn't mean that all Muslims follow and obey this, but those attackers, those assailants at the mall in Westgate in Nairobi, Kenya, did follow what the Quran says. Find and fight the infidel wherever you may find him. Find and kill the infidel wherever you may find him.
But let me say this, because I think this has to be emphasized too. There are Kenyan government leaders, and probably the number 2 in the country, who is a Muslim. Some of those soldiers who went into the building, putting their lives on the line to kill the terrorists, were Muslim too. So we have to differentiate, surely.
Yes, we certainly do. The trouble is that all of those, 100% of those who are actively fighting and killing and targeting Christians and other non-Muslims for death, 100% of them base their actions on the doctrine, the law, and the scriptures of Islam.
So how do we respond? The two of us, we are honest enough to speak about this in real terms, not political terms and relativism. Look, we've seen in Egypt a coalition of people who are more secular, more liberal-minded, more moderate Muslims and Christians who've brought in a new government. There are many Muslims around the world who do see a pluralistic future. I would say this, that the impetus right now the growth, the younger people, the strength generally, particularly in the Islamic diaspora, is radicalism. That's what I fear, that it's not that they're the majority, but that they have the greatest impetus and influence right now.
Well, you know, we're looking at, just as you say, an immigrant and a diaspora community of Somalis who've settled by the tens of thousands in both Canada and the United States. In the U.S., in places like Minnesota, cities like Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona, also in Tennessee and other places. And it is precisely out of the mosques in those immigrant Somali communities that recruitment is going on to lure young Somali men who may be born in in the Western Hemisphere, in North America, citizens of Canada and the United States, to lure them over to Somalia, where they are trained in terrorism, they are trained in fighting and tactics and weapons and explosives, imbued with the ideology. And then if they are not killed themselves in attacks like this, the danger is that they may return back to our countries, to Canada, to the United States, with these newfound skills and heightened allegiance to this ideology, to wreak havoc here on places like shopping malls in our countries.
And of course, converts too. I mean, we're pretty sure now, it's not absolutely confirmed, that an English woman, a white English, Anglo-Saxon woman, her maiden name is an historic Northern English name, converted and has committed terrorism in the past and is now dead as a terrorist. It's extraordinary. Appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.